We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, and 1410 KERI. Our guests by phone, John Nelson, President of Warner Pacific, and Mike Belote, Consultant for the California Health Underwriting Association.
So I've got sort of a selfish question since I'm in the healthcare delivery system in one way or another. What's the benefit to the insurance agents? Will they be in business, and will they be paid a commission?
Well, the insurance agents will be sustained in the long haul because, as Mike said earlier, this is an enormously complex product that we're selling. And what we're selling simply is the financing of the healthcare delivery system, how doctors get paid. And as time goes on, the more and more regulations that come out of that are promulgated by the state and federal governments, somebody's going to have to explain that to the consumer. And the reality is, with all the choices and all the complications on something as big as healthcare, they're going to need an advisor to step in and help them out. Somebody who doesn't work for the insurance companies, somebody who works for the consumer, and that's not going away. That's why the exchange has been very vocal about the importance of agents. That's why agents are continuing to be involved. Customer satisfaction remains, as far as their personal agents, as far as consumers' personal agents are concerned, very high compared to the online delivery experience. I have no doubt that in the long haul, that agents will continue to remain viable.
And as I discuss this issue with legislators and policymakers here, we remind them that it isn't just the selection of the insurance product that is at issue here. You know, I run a small business like hundreds of thousands of Californians do, and I use an insurance agent, to explain the options to me. Every year we talk about the market and what the options are for our company. And it isn't just the selection of the product, it's the service after the product that I count on. My employees call our agent and say, is this covered? What is my deductible on this? I'm having trouble getting through to the hospital or doctor on this issue. So it's not just picking the plan, it's servicing the customer that the agent is so important on, and that's why I wouldn't dream of doing this without an insurance agent.
Would either of you care to discuss the potential increase in taxes or the new taxes for employers that is going to be part of the ACA?
My bet is that at the end, look, the original legislation was 2,700 pages long. By the time the federal agencies do their thing and additional regulations are written, that the law will end up growing to about over 300,000 pages. And somewhere within those pages, there's going to be additional language interpreting what Congress meant about taxes on employers. I think this tax thing is going to be really politically controversial, and I think that's going to compel Congress. I think it's going to compel the administration and the federal agencies to adjust things like the taxes, like the onerous provisions that I discussed earlier concerning the individual program. My bet is that overall, in the long haul, that this stuff will be watered down. But it is important for consumers, employers, to get engaged in this and let their feelings be known. The good news, though, from my experience so far, is that regulators have an open ear. They want employers to stay in the game. They do not want employers to drop coverage. They're very sensitive to employers' opinions about the ACA. And you could see this in the past regulations over the last couple of years, and no doubt in my mind we'll continue to see that as time goes on.
And another interesting political dynamic, I think, is the upholding the ACA will tamp down discussion, I think, of an even broader reform known as single payer. Had you seen this law be struck down, I think the single payer option would have reignited, and public debate would have centered on that. You're going to see years now of trying to make this ACA work, and that will take away the discussion, I think, of moving to a single-payer system.
Our guest by phone, John Nelson, President of Warner Pacific, and Mike Belote, Consultant for the California Health Underwriting Association.
So, guys, I got an individual who has an auto accident. He doesn't have any health insurance or auto insurance. He's on his way to the hospital, and in the ambulance, the guy servicing him gives him a form to sign to give him health insurance. Guaranteed issue. Are we going to see a problem with that in the future?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about a couple of years from now. Anybody, look, the problem with the tax or the penalty or whatever it is, I guess it's a tax now, is that it was so weak that when people after January 2014, they won't be motivated financially to buy coverage at that point because the prices will be higher, and they know that they can change their mind anytime they want, including when they're in the ambulance on their way to the hospital. A lot of community clinics, people are going to walk into there seeking care. The first question I suppose they're going to be asked is, do you have coverage? The answer will be no. Well, then here, sit down at this computer, and 5 minutes later they have coverage, and then 10 minutes later they have a claim. That's called adverse selection, and that's what's going to drive these insurers out of the marketplace because it's simply unsustainable. There's no strong means to keep people fully engaged, fully covered until the time they need it, unless they put other provisions in there that I alluded to earlier, special open enrollment periods that we've seen, for example, with Medicare D and some of these other stuff. If you've got 3 more hours, I can explain it to you, but that's my opinion about it.
Well, I think we saw the guaranteed issue situation on the kids under 19, where the insurance carriers come up with specific dates in a year, didn't they? John?
Say that again.
Under the child guaranteed issue program for children between 1 and 19, didn't the insurance companies say that you would have like 2 times a year that you could come in on a guaranteed issue basis?
Right, but also we saw some insurance companies pull out of the marketplace. Look, it could be this bad. It could be as bad as what we saw in Washington State about 10 years ago. They put similar provisions into place. They didn't have a mandate to buy coverage, but that's the mandate here we're talking about with the ACA with the taxing is so weak. It's about the same thing. What happened in Washington State when they did that, when they required all insurance companies to provide coverage on a guarantee issue basis to accept everybody and to set their rates at a given level, is we saw no insurance companies in that marketplace for 2 years. That no matter how healthy you were, you could not buy a policy as an individual in that marketplace for 2 years. And that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking at in January 2014 unless we see some meaningful changes to that law. And I think we will because of that.
So in the macro sense, as the population ages, and you've already talked about this, and older people obviously consume more health care than younger, you simply have to find a way to bring the healthy lives into the system, or it gets out of whack very, very quickly.
Why would a healthy life want to come in and spend the money if they don't have to?
Well, they would do it. They would do it for just because they think it's the right thing to do. There's a sense that if you don't have insurance, that they feel uncovered and they feel vulnerable. But you're right. I mean, what happens if the system is set up the way it is right now, envisioned for 2014? Why would somebody be paying $500 a month when they're perfectly healthy and knowing that they can change their mind 2 years from now when they need the coverage? That's the problem.
Especially when they can they'll be forced to pay a tax of like, what, $80 or something?
If it's $900 or whatever it is, and you've saved yourself 24 months at $500 a month,
right.
The math, you don't need to be a PhD in math to figure out that, there's an economic advantage for doing it that way.
Going on a national basis just for a minute, because I'm concerned nationally as well as locally, under the Medicaid mandate, I understand that the states do not have to participate in offering guaranteed issue benefits under Medicaid if they decide not to, and the federal government can't take away any of their existing dollars. Did you hear anything about that today?
That was the ruling, yes, part of the ruling that we spoke about earlier. Congress lacks the authority to penalize states. They can incentivize them in terms of giving them benefits if they opt in, but they cannot divert other Medicaid dollars away from them if they don't.
And they don't have to opt in if they don't want to.
Right.
Now, Chris Christie, and we're going to close with this, I think, Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, for example, decided not to implement the exchanges and the Medicaid required program. His own legislature voted to implement it, and he vetoed it. So he actually ended up saving the state of New Jersey millions, maybe billions of dollars, which I thought was wonderful.
So we'll see how that plays out in the long haul. But by him deciding that they're not going to do exchanges, it means the federal government is going to have to do it for them. And people who are entitled to these subsidies, who have to buy them through an exchange, are going to have to buy them through the coverage from some exchange somewhere, and that's going to be the federal government. So we'll see how that plays out.
There could be also the creation of regional exchanges where a state somewhere on the East Coast steps in.
Yeah. John, Mike, unfortunately we're out of time, and we do have to do this again. Thank you so much for the time. We really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we will see you again in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.